Okay, so this is Kendra with Choice TV, and I'm back with another video. And I wanted to discuss the timelines in which we've been giving the Gregorian calendar and how the distortion of it, just saying A, B, C, D, B, C, E, distorts the timeline. And it erases certain parts of history, right? If using the Gregorian calendar, you erase events prior to it, right? So, and why am I saying this? Well, I went to Google, right? Because I wanted to figure out how, I'll just show you. So I went and I asked Google, how many years were from Adam and Eve to the death of Jesus Christ? And according to Google, it states, according to common biblical chronology, the time between the creation of Adam and Eve and the death of Jesus is approximately 4,000 years. This estimate derived from genealogies and timeline within the Bible, with specific calculations by scholars like Bishop Ussher, who placed creation around 4,000 for the year 4004, right, BCE. It is important. All right, we're not going to get in that because they're about to tell you a bunch of lies. So what Bishop Ussher did was take creation. We know that the earth was created by God and created a little bit before Adam, right? And then God breathed into the nostrils of Adam and came to life man. So we can say that the number 0 would represent the creation of everything before Adam, and 1 would be the first day, and the first day that Adam was created, because a year had not passed, right? The first day that Adam would be created would be that first day, right? And then his existence afterwards would be 930 years. Adam lived on the earth. If you read your Bible, you know he lived to be 930, right? So after 930, his son Seth lived to be 913. So if you do the math, from Adam being the first person to inhabit the earth with Eve, they had a son. Now, when they had that son in the first, we don't know how many years it took for them to have that son. So give or take, Adam lived 930 years. And his son, being conceived from Eve, who was about maybe give or take a year less, right? Her son Seth was born and lived to be 912 years. So if you added 930 years of Adam life to 912 years of Seth life, you have the year 1842, give or take. You would have Seth dying in the year 1842, right? Give or take. Like I said, because Cain came before Seth. How many years? Well, Adam, it takes 9 months to conceive. So if God created Adam and Eve, and Adam and Eve conceived, they knew each other, so because they get thrown out of the Garden of Eden. They get thrown out to the east of Eden. Now, I don't know how long that took, right? So that's why I say give or take. I don't know how long that took for them to get thrown out. There's no timeline, right? But you knew they got thrown out. From them getting thrown out, and from the time that Adam was created, right? Because Adam was created when everything. So if he lived 930 years, it's sometime in that 930 year time frame, right? So from that, you add on his son's life, which is 912, which would give you again the year 1842, give or take, right? So then, so this is how Ussher basically calculated how old the earth was according to the creation of man, Adam and Eve, to to Seth in every genealogy. He used genealogical deaths in the biblical chronology, estimated and interpreted from biblical timelines based from Genesis, based on the life and death, the deaths of every descendant from Adam after him, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to confuse nobody. I'm trying to just say it to make sense. All right. So I needed to ask ChatGPT a couple of questions, because if, according to the biblical chronology, Jesus Christ, because you got to understand, many things happened prior to Jesus Christ, right? We got Adam, he being kicked out of the garden. Then we got the earth getting bad, right? Lamech, right? And then we get in the earth getting bad. We got Noah, right? God flooded the earth, wiped it out. The suns came on ground. The suns repopulated the earth. Then you got Moses, right? That was the next event in his Exodus, right? And then after Moses, you have the Hebrews going into captivity, right? You got King David, King Solomon, and then you get Jesus. So all these decades, all these different timelines you got before Jesus' birth. Now, when we go into the Gregorian calendar, it caps us. It says that we're only 2,000 years old, and meaning that it's starting from either the birth of Jesus or the death, which they said the death of Jesus, right? What is it? BC is before Christ. So they was like, okay, they got you starting before Christ. They got you starting after Christ's death, right? So this is BCE, right, which is 4,000 years. Before I get to that topic, I'm going to flip and show the mathematical equation on how, and then I asked, before I get to that, sorry y'all, I'm just trying to gather all this stuff together. Okay, so then I asked them how many years from Jesus' death till now, till today, which they say is like 1990 to 1995, right? So, and then if you ask them, it'll say 2,000. If you say till now, it'll say 2,000 years. But let's go on what they just said. Let's take 4,000 years, 4,004 years, okay? And we're going to add 1990, which means we will be either in the year 5,995, or if we do 95, we will be in the year 5,999. If we do 2,000 years, as they will say, we will be in the year 6,004. They tell us we in the year 2000. Let's find out why. So I went and asked good old ChatGPT. All right. So, according to the Gregorian calendar, our current year 2005 is based on Gregorian calendar, which was established by Pope Gregory the 8th in 1582. Now, remember I told y'all, he couldn't mean biblical 1518. He couldn't mean the real 1582. Why couldn't he really mean the real 1582? Because if we do our math, we find out that, again, Adam died he was the first creation of man, right? So he died at 900. Oh, I cleared my history. 930, all right? He died at 930 years old, plus his son that died at 912, which would give us the year 1842, when his son Seth died. So ain't possible for Pope Gregory to be here in 1582 unless he was here during the time that of Cain and Abel, okay, who came before even Seth. Hello, somebody. So he's talking about the fake Gregorian year. So let's figure out what year this really was, right? So if you take 4,000 years, this is prior to Christ. This is from Adam to Jesus, right? And you, okay, they said 15, you add, right, because this is after the Pope, 2,000 years to that. And then you, hold on, and you minus 1582. And the reason why I added the 2,000 years or so to it is because this was supposed to happen well after Jesus' crucifixion. Remember, Jesus died, Jesus, from Adam and Eve for 4,000 years. And then from Jesus' death to our time, right, is 2,000 years, right? So give and take, and then I minus the 1582 that he's claiming to be, would mean that he was really in the year 4,418 when Pope Gregory came up with this calendar. Okay? I hope y'all sticking with me and staying with me. It's a solar calendar meant to better track Earth's orbit around the sun. But in years, numbering system is based on the estimate birth of Jesus Christ, not his death. Okay, so his birth, even with his birth, would still be within that 4,000 years, right? It still would be in that 4,000 years. So in that 4,000 years, what you don't understand is, if you are saying that you are starting the calendar from the birth of Jesus, hear me out, y'all. Hello, somebody. From the birth of Jesus, you're wiping away his mother, right? And all the history that happened prior to him. Does that make sense to y'all? You're saying that anything prior, when you're starting the world, everything we know, at 2025, you're saying the earth is only 2,000 years old. Okay, after the death of Jesus, the earth is only so where did Jesus die and get crucified? Did he get this done at another planet? Because you're starting the earth over when he was born. So was Eve, his mother, born on another planet? And everybody before him? Because I'm not understanding why we will only be in the year 2000 when 4,000 years happened prior. Or years happened prior to his birth. You would be erasing every history prior to his birth. Which means then who gave birth to him? Hello, somebody. So how are we only 2,000 years old? The earth did not stop after Jesus was born. And then he went on by himself and did all this stuff. And then the earth kept going. Baby, it took somebody to make Jesus. Eve, Adam, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, them. He was going to be in the bloodline of David. David came before him. But if you start the earth at 2025 after he was born, you then wipe away King David, the bloodline in which he was supposed to spring out of. Make it make sense. 4,000 years from Adam to Jesus is a biblical chronology, not a scientific. But your scientific chronology, your scientific is based on fictition, because we turned over and found out he did this based on Easter, right? But let's go ahead and let him try to say that this is scientific, trying to explain away God, because that's all they ever try to do, to make people go to hell, because that's Satan's whole goal. Because if you don't realize that let's go on. I'm trying to not be long-winded. 4,000 years of Adam interpretation by biblical scholars who were here first, so they would know. All right. And establish it based on Genesis. Right. Which makes sense. Right. That part of what's called the young earth creationism, which claims the earth is around 6,000 years old. Sound about right. 4,000 years from Adam to Christ. 2,000 years from Christ to today. Right. This isn't religious. This was what was documented, sweetheart. Why are we in the year 2025? The calendar system counts from the supposed birth of Jesus, not from the creation. Okay, well then that's a problem, because you wipe out anything prior to him. You saying that like that's correct. Like you supposed to do that. Make that make sense. But, oh, sorry y'all. Hold on, y'all. Now, he goes, observation. It doesn't go from the Anon, AD, Domini, whatever. It doesn't account for the entirety of human history that precedes him, including a history of his ancestors. This can be seen as a gap, exactly, or an erasure, right? Jesus was born to human mother. His lineage traced back through several generations, right? All the way up from David to Judah, from Judah to Jacob to Isaac to Abraham, from Abraham to Terah, from Terah to from Terah to Lamech, from Lamech, I know I'm missing somebody, from Lamech to, from Terah to somebody, I forgot, Jared, I think, somebody, don't quote me on it. And then from him to Noah, from Noah to Seth, from Seth to Adam. Yes, you're erasing all of them, right? So it says Jesus was, okay, and it says the events before Christ includes creation of humanity, yep, development of civilizations, rise and falls of kingdom, and ignoring the calculations of the calendar years, right? Why this happens. The origin of the calendar. Gregorian calendar was created by the church, specifically Pope George. And okay, we already know in what year that was, in the fake 1582, but in the real year of 4418. It was something, give or take. Was designed as to align the calendar with Christian religion events, particularly Easter. Now, if anybody know, Easter has nothing to do with Jesus Christ, right? Easter has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. All right, you can go ahead and slow it down and read this for yourself, but we're going to get into the next thing. I wanted to just say that Satan is here to rob, steal, kill, and destroy. Distorting times, geographical locations, and history is his way of getting more people to go to hell. Just to let y'all know. Because why else would you do this? Aligning Easter, you didn't need to. You knew it had nothing to do with Jesus Christ. Hello, somebody. Now let's go to Easter. Is Easter originally pagan? Yes. Historically, yes. Right, historically. The word Easter likely comes from, okay, a pagan Anglo-Saxon goddess of spring and fertility. That's what the bunny rabbit is this fertility, and the egg is fertility. Springtime brings out your rabbit, and rabbits reproduce rapidly. Symbols like eggs and rabbits are fertility symbols, amen, not related to resurrection of Christ, which I said. Spring festival celebrates rebirth and renewal existing long before Christianity, and spring in Babylonian, Roman, and Germanic traditions, right? So these people were celebrating fertility gods, all this stuff. Now, again, Christianity, they say before Christianity, again, there were people worshiping false gods, right? Christianity wasn't a thing. So before that is whatever the Hebrews practiced, right? And it was their history which transpired the Bible and Christianity, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. What does Easter have to do with Jesus? Christian tradition. Easter is a name now used to celebrate resurrection of Jesus Christ, right, which occurred during Jewish Passover. There's no proof in that. That's conjecture, right? Early Christians didn't call it Easter. They marked it during Passover, which is tied to Jewish history, not paganism. Again, Easter is not something that any believer should ever practice. It has absolutely nothing to do with Jesus Christ. Do you hear me? Not a thing. We just read that. They're not going to come back and tell you something different. Nothing to do with Jesus Christ. Over time, church leaders blended Christian belief with local customs. All right, to ease the conversion of pagans. So what they did was change the truth into a lie, like the Bible said. They changed the truth into a lie. To get these pagans to believe in God, they lied. Pope Gregory, calendar, You're talking about Gregorian calendar to do, okay, anyway. The old Julian calendar was slightly off and didn't match the solar year precisely. No, it just didn't match the timeline in which they wanted to distort history, right? It was slightly off. It didn't match the solar years. It didn't match Easter. It drifted from celebration of Easter, which should not even be celebrated because it has nothing to do with Christ. So Gregorian decided to get it to align with this pagan holiday. He would better align Easter with the spring equinox, right? So basically he aligned it with the I think it's the sun, with the what's the name of the sun? I can't think of it right now. But he aligned it with that and decided to be like, all right, we need to celebrate this. This is when Jesus was born. Like, do you know he just made that up, right? Just to celebrate a false god and to get everybody else to celebrate this false god under the guise of using Christ. I'm just saying. We out here being misled. All right, it says, is that misleading or even sinful? From a biblical point of view, it can absolutely be seen as compromise or even deception. Deuteronomy 12 and 30 and 31 warns not to worship God in the way pagans worship their gods. Mixing pagan practice with worship of the true God was strictly forbidden. The early church warned against syncretism, blending true faith and false traditions. So yes, celebrating a holiday like Easter without discernment or anchoring your calendar, yes, and worldview around it can be considered paganism in disguise. Thank you guys. This is Kendra with True Us TV. Like, share, and subscribe. Stay up, stay blessed. Put God first above all else. Peace out. Bye for now.